And now it just said you're live.
Okay.
I don't know why it took that long to go live. Maybe YouTube's servers are struggling today or something.
Okay. Notification.
Received.
You're coming in. I see you.
Am I broadcasting?
Yeah.
Am I live? Okay, we're just gonna forget that old one happened. Yeah, dude, I'm a victim of a cyber attack. I'm being silenced by the man. All right, we're good.
Dinor, you gotta help.
Oh, D.
You wanna say hello to Daddy?
That whiptail, D.
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna whip with that whiptail?
You wanna give it?
Dude, there's about to be a ton of little flowers out here.
Yeah. Well, they were dandelions, and then they poofed, and now they're re-blooming.
Jeez.
Dude, if you wanted dandelion greens, we got dandelion greens for days.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever tried eating them before.
Dandelion greens?
Yeah.
No.
They're alright.
Are they?
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Naughty Priest, thank you as always. The Polish Republic greets me. Oh boy. Hello, Poland. How's it going over there? I remember I was talking to somebody who lived in Europe this was back in the DP days. I was talking in like the Discord or something. And I was talking about like where I would like to visit in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody was telling me like Poland is lit. And I was like, Poland? And I'm like, no, seriously, like Warsaw is a really cool city, lots of cool music and stuff. And I was like, man, I never would have guessed.
And the underground salt mine, you can't forget that.
Oh yeah, they got that fucking cool ass underground salt mine too.
Although it might not be the best time right now to visit Poland.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. What kind of animal behavior do you find really interesting? I find animal friendships really interesting, like seeing how their psychologies kind of mesh together, like deer playing with dogs. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I find animals just kind of generally fascinating.
Yeah, like when we watch them ducks and squirrels, just how they all like intermingled.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, we went and sat at the park this week, and sat and like watched the little ducks and the swans and the geese and the squirrels, and they're all just kind of like coexisting there on the little shore of the little lake at the park, and it's like, whoa.
There were like some mud daubers, and then like some geese ran in, fucking squawking, and then they just like were ruffled a little bit, and then they just went back to their business.
Everybody was, the whole ecosystem was chill. You're going to Lisbon, Pranav? That's cool. That's real neat. Yeah, thought it would be fun. You're going to Greece for 2 weeks, huh? That's nice too. I just want to fly right now, dog. I don't want to like plan a big old trip that has like, it's like, dude, you got to buy all them hotels. What happens if you show up there and your flight gets canceled? And then what happens if you get over there and your flight gets canceled on the way back? I can't hang with that, dude. I got to have some kind of like reasonable faith that if I go through all the crap at an airport, that I'm going to get where I'm going in time.
I can get home on time.
Yeah.
It gets expensive real quick if you can't get home.
Yeah, I'm not trying to, pay for extra days in Europe and shit. Ugh. Oh, fucking just get out. No time out for you. You just get banned. Yeah, well, I'm my boss, so I'm not cool about it. Somebody, like, if we have shit we have to do and it doesn't get done, that's never a good thing. Your argument about with TJ about the Harry Potter goblins genuine or a little kayfabe? I really honestly don't even remember the argument. Is that where he was saying that he felt like the goblins were like a Jewish stereotype or whatever?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm willing to a lot for the fact that those sorts of stereotypes, might have played into like the goblin design or whatever. But I really don't think that it's a foregone conclusion that they do. I just really don't. Um, there's this kind of choice in comparison. I think you know what I mean. Intent of the artist that made the work matters, but your interpretation of the work matters as well. And it's only like a damaging Jewish stereotype if you allow it to be, really. Like, I'm about challenging those stereotypes. I really don't look at the goblins in Harry Potter, and I got to be honest with you, I watched all the movies as an adult, read the books as an adult, and I never came to the conclusion myself like, whoa, those goblins are Jews. Like, I understand that, some of the Jewish stereotypes and stuff, big noses and obsession with money and stuff, they're kind of shared amongst the goblins. But I tend to, like, err on the side of the fantasy universe.
I mean, like, there's some examinations of racism, so maybe if it is supposed to be a Jewish stereotype, maybe it's a criticism of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
like-
you'd really have to, like, sit down and talk to J.K. Rowling about it. I doubt that she would come out and say, oh, yeah, I based them on Jews.
Like, the whole mudblood thing, that was like an examination of racism.
Right, yeah. It's definitely touched on in the books, and a lot of people will say in a problematic way.
Yeah.
Like, I remember seeing a critique of the half-blood prince, because that term half-blood is an inherently racist kind of term that was used for people that are mixed race.
She's pointing out that it's racist.
Right.
The evil group is the purebloods, basically.
Yeah. But I'm willing to allot for the fact that maybe some damaging, like, stereotypes and some misconceptions of J.K. Rowling's kind of maybe found their way into Harry Potter. I don't think it's completely, like, out of the realm of possibility, but I do think it gets played up a little much. I think that, like, because it was such an important book to a lot of young people who are now in their 20s, 30s, there's a real sense to overanalyze the Harry Potter books. They're just insanely popular. It's like the Bible and then Harry Potter, in terms of book sales. And so there's going to be this, like, massive amount of scrutiny of every word that's written in those. And I think that kind of scrutiny is sometimes detrimental to the work overall. I'm not saying people don't have the right to look at it and scrutinize it as much as they want, but I'm just saying, like, for me, I enjoyed the little books, and I enjoyed some of the little movies, and that's what they were to me. It's a wizard movie, There's a wizard. There's a wizard academy, and they do that. Yeah, does it touch on some issues of race and class and all of that? Yeah, Hermione being poor comes up over and over and over again. She never has the money to blow on all the little wizard things that everybody else has.
The Weasleys, especially.
The Weasleys are, at the bottom of the economic ladder. But
I know some people are pissed off about the elves, the house elves being like slaves, basically.
I mean, I don't know, man. Once again, when I was reading those books, I was one of the things that I liked about the Harry Potter books was the way that it shut out the real world and created this alternate fantasy world and stuff. And I really honestly did not read through that book looking for examples of possible racist imagery and stuff. Maybe, hey, maybe it's full of it. I don't know. I will admit that I have not like pored over these books in a scholarly way. So, but they don't mean to me what they mean to a lot of people. Those books came along after I was already in my 20s and they became like a cultural phenomenon. I ended up picking them up. So, that's a different thing than if I grew up reading the books. Grew up with the characters in the books and shit.
People burn their Harry Potter books.
Seems like a little bit of an overreaction, but hey, what are you gonna do? So he's flying a drone.
Yeah.
Not a drone, but like a little model airplane, it looks like.
Yeah.
That's cool. I wasn't looking for racism or anything either, but they made me double take. It wasn't a big deal to me or anything. Just remember you getting really heated, which is always fun to watch. I mean, yeah, dude. I don't think that anybody can definitively say, oh, that's a Jewish stereotype, and completely ignore the intent of the author. We're talking about a fantasy race of people that does not exist, that has histories and whatnot that don't intertwine with like anti-Jewish rhetoric and shit. So I think that like just definitively saying like, oh yeah, the goblins are Jews, the house elves are black people, all of the racial groups that are represented in an uncharitable way. I think just looking at it through that lens and ignoring everything that the author has to say about the book and stuff. I mean, how much closer can you get to the truth of a book than asking earnest questions of the person that wrote it? Even then, I'm not saying you can trust that 100% because sometimes people mask their intent and sometimes people are unaware of subconscious intent. But I don't know, man. I just don't. I don't think it's cut and dried. And I remember, a little bit about that argument. I remember TJ presenting it like it was just very cut and dried. It was just like, oh yeah, the goblins are Jews. And to me, it's almost like kind of offensive to insinuate that. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'd say Voldemort, what do you say, is supposed to be Hitler, basically.
I mean, if you really want to dig into it, but like, it's also like Godwin's Law kind of thing. Anytime there's a big evil baddie in the world, it's supposed to be some kind of representation of Hitler. And I don't know that I don't know that I necessarily buy that, man. It's a fantasy universe, man. I don't know what to tell you. It just like I'll be honest with you real quick here. One of the things I dislike about it is that it rips all the fun out of a fantasy universe to stick it in our own mundane world and try and interpret every little fucking piece of it through our own boring, unsufferable, unchanging politics. That sucks. You know? Whether the people saying that there's some problematic stereotyping in the book are right or wrong, it sucks to me to take an experience of like the experience of reading a book and enjoying a completely alternate fantasy universe to drag it into our own universe and try and contextualize everything in it through our own shit. You know, I just don't like our propensity to do that as a culture. It's not my favorite thing in the world to do. I'm not telling you what to do at all. Like, you don't have to just chill and enjoy it. If you want to read every book and run every word of every syllable through the grist of the mill when it comes to our own politics and come to a bunch of fucking decisions about how problematic the work is or whatever, if that's what you want to do, then do it. But I just don't do that. At least not as a primary action, you know. There's some universes, sci-fi, fantasy, and stuff that invite that. They're clearly written to try and get people talking about the parallels between the world and it.
Like Dune.
Dune is a great example. But I don't know.
You want more coffee? Or are you okay?
I think I'm okay. I think I have a cup of water in there.
Yeah, I'll get that.
Do you acknowledge the concept of TERFs, Paul? Yes. I mean, there are people that openly label themselves as such, so yeah. There are such things as radical feminists who believe, in my opinion, erroneously, that bestowing the title of womanhood upon trans women is tantamount to allowing men into female exclusive spaces. Being as charitable as I possibly can, I guess I can understand from a human perspective how some radical feminists may feel that way, but I feel that it is rooted in an archaic kind of idea about gender as a binary. And I believe that science and taxonomy and the study of biology has proven time and time again that gender is not a binary, either in humanity or in anywhere else in nature. You find examples of multiple genders within a species everywhere in nature. But for some reason, humanities are this hard binary. I really believe that the feminists that believe that are rooted in an archaic way of thinking about human biology and human psychology and gender. And I believe that it is hurtful for trans women to go through the absolutely life-shattering process of coming out and, depending on whether they choose to or not, getting multiple different packages of surgeries and stuff in order to be what they feel like they are on the inside, right? And I feel like it's incredibly damaging to them to have them go through all of that and then to deny them the basic title of womanhood. And so that's where I stand on that.
Such a small subset of people, too, to be so obsessed over.
It is. And, you know, to be frank, I think rightfully so, the profile of trans people has been raised immensely in the last 15, 20 years. And society as a whole has kind of forced people to take a stand one way or the other on it. You know, and then that's a good thing. It means that trans people who were just not even part of the conversation, unless it was derisive for so long, are now part of the conversation. There are still people that deride them. There are people that defend them. And that conversation has to happen in order for them to be accepted in society. It has to happen. It has to be hashed out. But yeah, I mean, society has placed them at the forefront. A very small segment of the global population has been placed right in the spotlight when it comes to social issues. And it really is a sign that, you know, at least in that area, global society is doing the right thing. It's working to humanize a group of human beings who have been is horribly, horribly portrayed. I mean, you and I run into it all the time because we're always going back and watching these movies that I haven't seen since I was a teenager. And how many of them are just chock full of transphobia. I don't even remember it until I get to that part and I'm like, whoa. There's always a trans character, oftentimes played by a woman, shockingly and hypocritically, who is catfishing men. That is such a trope throughout the late 80s and early 90s and mid 90s and all the way through the fucking 90s, let's be honest. The trans catfish. Dude, there was an Oscar-winning film, won Best Picture, called The Crying Game. And that is the whole story. The whole story is about a dude that ultimately gets catfished by a quote-unquote man that's dressed as a woman. That's basically the core of that story. And so there was this real fascination with portraying trans people as if they were like out there to catfish people, and they were just like, look, they were gay guys looking to get with guys by tricking them, which is just, you know, the most uncharitable portrayal of a group of people that you can possibly give.
And I think there's just a large portion of people that think that cross-dressers and trans people are the same,
Right,
when they're not.
right. I mean, trans people used to be referred to colloquially as transvestites, which just means that like people that dress up like another gender, and that's a totally different thing. There are people that enjoy cross-dressing that are not trans, and so you're trying to conflate two different types of people together, and that was the truth for the longest time. The trope was, especially trans women, trans men just don't exist, by the way. Nobody talks about trans men. That's one of the hypocritical things about like the whole trans women in sports argument. Where's the trans men in sports argument? You know what I mean? Where's their representation in sports and shit? It's just they're kind of an invisible cast of people. Trans women get a lot of focus in the movement. Trans men are just kind of like, yeah. You don't really hear much about them. They're definitely not as prevalent in any community. And so, you know, it's just one of those things. But we haven't reached this kind of equilibrium yet. We're living in a transitional time, no pun intended, where the overall attitude of society is slowly becoming more accepting of the idea that, you know, maybe it's not just a black and white issue, gender.
I mean, it's a painful process. Like, there's, you know, invisibility into being in the spotlight. There's going to be a lot of hate and a lot of harm in that transition, unfortunately, but
you can see what just a hot button issue it is in pretty much every community. It just continuously gets brought up in our broader culture and all these little subcultures, and that has to happen. It has to be run through the grist of the mill. That's how minds get changed, generationally speaking. Is, you know, instead of being raised like I was to revile trans people, now young people are being raised at the very least in an environment where that's contentious, where there's maybe a group of people that still revile trans people, but there's this other group of people that's become so loud you can't ignore them, that take up for trans people and defend trans people and try to work to humanize trans people, rightfully so. That didn't exist when I was a kid, or at least I had no access to what small movement that was. And so, you know, it was harder, I guess, for me, and probably less likely that I end up sitting where I am and having the positions that I do. It was a lot of, you know, real examination of my own bigotry and shit. And that type of self-analysis and self-examination, dude, people don't want to do it. Nobody wants to do it. You know, bigots, racists. You know, what do you think the glue that holds those types of positions to people is? It's ego. And just a deep fear of examining things that they've held as truth. And comparing it to any kind of, you know, evidence that they may see themselves out in the world and seeing if it fucking holds up. Nobody wants to do that, myself included. Nobody. I'm not claiming it's easy for me to do that. It wasn't easy for me to shed some of my more problematic fucking positions. You know, I'm not a person that likes other people telling them, you can't say that. Ooh, I'm the type of person that just wants to say it even more. You know, call that childish or whatever. And so, like, you know, it took some work for me to, like, actually sit down, talk to some other people, get some other perspectives on it before I arrived at the place that I am now.
You know, part of it is illiteracy. People that can't read the latest data. We're graduating illiterates.
I mean, that's part of the problem. You can't ignore it, right? Yeah. I mean, we talk about it a lot here. And think about it too, a lot of times that prejudice is reinforced by your most closely held social group. Everybody around you is transphobic. Everybody around you laughs at it. Everybody around you opposes the quote-unquote gay agenda or whatever. And let's make no bones about it, guys. It is so much easier to go along just to get along than it is to stand in opposition. And the closer that shit gets to you, you know, the harder it is to maintain a resistance to it. You're right, it's hard to reach that realization that some of your positions are not free of prejudice. Absolutely. Because nobody like, here's the thing, man. Nobody wants to think of themselves as a nasty, dirty, wrong person. Nobody wants to be that, whether they are that or not. Human beings in general don't want to be perceived as somebody who's bigoted and ignorant, right? And so part of it is just, you know, a combination of those two social pressures working in a very negative way. You've got all the people around them living in the same delusion. And so if you really want to have anybody to take your back on any kind of position on anything, you got to go along to get along. And then you've got the big scary act of self-examination and coming to the realization that you've hurt people with your attitude. That they're, and me as a performer, I really had to go through that. You know, because I wasn't just speaking to a small little group of people. I was speaking to thousands and thousands of people. And some of these really fucking ugly jokes and ugly kind of, like, it was made with the intent being humor, but that doesn't mean that if a trans person was listening to it, they probably just felt like I was pointing a big finger right in their face. You know what I mean? It took me going like, man, that was fucking ugly of me. And I don't want to go forward being a person like that. Like, it took a real admission and a self-evaluation of how I was presenting. You know what I mean? And you guys know me. I'm not a person that overemphasizes that shit. You know, I'm not the most image-conscious person. You know, I really kind of just say what I think and present myself how I am. But that was a tough thing for me. I'm very defensive of who and what I am. And I'm very, very defensive of my right to say whatever it is on my mind, you know? And so in order to challenge some of those ugly misconceptions that I carried out of my young adulthood and childhood, I had to, yeah, I had to engage in a whole lot of empathizing. A whole lot of it. And a whole lot of just general talking, not even really about this subject, just general talking with people from the marginalized groups that I was poking fun at crassly. Gay people, other bisexual people, trans people. Like, one of the things that really challenges this idea that was very prevalent when I was a kid, that trans people are just quote unquote men trying to trick they're gay men trying to trick other men into having sex with them, is now that trans people have a level of visibility that doesn't immediately get them ostracized, why are they all so happy to share their transition?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Maybe not all of them, but so many trans people are stepping to the forefront. Hey, I'm getting top surgery. Hey, I'm getting bottom surgery. Mm-hmm. If they were out there to catfish dudes, why would they make their legacy? Hey, I'm a trans person and I transitioned. It's just.
And there's lesbian trans women and there's gay trans men too.
Mm-hmm. So it is what it is, man. That's how I feel. That's basically where I stand on that. And I'm willing to be honest about how I came to that as well. Blair White is hot. Okay, cool.
But yeah, I mean, gay people went through that same ringer, and now, like, the conservatives can't focus on them as much anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't sell the same way.
Yeah. Just gay people in general spent a lot of time in history having to do their business in the shadows, having to be themselves in dingy, dirty bars and stuff, and be subject to raids and ridicule coming and going from them and stuff. And we're really just, that's what the pride movement is about. And that's why I was so defensive during the whole pride discourse that happened a couple years ago or last year or wherever it was. It was about, like, out of the closets into the streets. It wasn't about, we want to fit in with you. Hey, come and, no, it was about, we're here. This is how we live. And you're not going to ignore us 365 days a year. We're not going to be pushed into dingy bars and shit. We're not going to pretend we're something we're not to satisfy your uncomfortability with our existence. That's what pride is about, and that has been liberally applied to cisgendered gay people over the course of my lifetime, but trans people are only just now getting it.
Like, kink at pride has been there since the beginning, and look at how much progress has been made, like, despite that or whatever. It doesn't need to be ironed out and, like, cleaned up or whatever the fuck.
Yep. Do you think humans will ever ascend to the point where we will have no need for borders? No need for identity borders? Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that it's possible. If you look at our trajectory, the world has shrunk in my lifetime. It's become a much smaller place in terms of that. Like, when I was a kid coming up through school, there used to be this, like, pen pal thing. And I remember one year, I think it was the second, third grade, we had pen pals in China. There was a group of Chinese kids who, at our age, were learning English. And so they were part of the international pen pal program or whatever the fuck. And they would write letters to us in English, and we would write letters back to them in English. That was the closest I ever came to interacting with somebody from a foreign country. And now you can just turn your phone on and talk to somebody from any quarter of the globe at any time. So the world has shrunk in terms of distance and between people, and in terms of the lack of empathy that comes from just not knowing what's going on or never talking to a person in this area. All of that stuff is starting to happen. And all of that stuff seems to imply a possible movement towards the abolition of borders between people. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
It's a big hump, like in our evolution, though, because we kind of came into being so like tribalistic.
Yeah. I mean, civilization at large is a huge hump in our evolution. We're still struggling to just live in the horribly imperfect and destructive civilization that we live in now. You know, we're at each other's throats over it every day. We still haven't got it figured out yet. There are all these like poisonous old ideas that are just holding on too tight. Nationalism and this kind of like capitalistic economy that's draped over human existence, where the hours that you spend on the finite clock of your life are monetized, so you have to do something you hate in order to just exist in the world, and that's just kind of accepted as that's the paradigm. Why? You know, for what fucking... Will marijuana continue to get better? Huh? I don't know. You should turn live chat off since interactivity is highly discouraged. I mean, what's the point? What are you talking about, cynic? Oh, I'm just gonna Paul smokes a cigarette. Somebody ban that idiot, please. I was 12 once too, man. Yeah, stop adding each other. Stop talking to other people. Oops, broke the rules again. Keep it up, cynic. Why are you getting all fucking rebellious today? Why don't you sit down and chill and give yourself another tattoo or some shit? Why don't you pop some mushrooms and just fucking chill? Go on a spiritual journey to the source or something, man. You're all angsty today. Yeah. Like, you gotta understand, man. This is, like I said, this is a place that relies in a way that other shows probably don't on interactivity with the chat. And it's super fucking like confusing for me when I'm trying to respond to the good questions in chat and shit, to have people talking to other people in the chat spun off on some fucking side conversation that nobody else is having. Now, you may not think that that's a good rule to have, but you also don't run a show that's, you know, based on that. Your rant on the Souls games on Twitter was funny as hell, Paul. Oh, dude, I was just trying to like trigger some people. I only got a couple of people. There was only a couple of people that responded with like, "Dude, how sad is your life?" Like dark, you know what I mean? Dark Souls obsessives. I didn't get many of them. They didn't. A lot of them didn't take the bait. Actually, got a bunch of people like agreeing with me mostly. I was like, oh. I do kind of get sick of like how, like, cause I play video games and stuff, and I get sick of how every time a From Software game comes out, it's like the whole gaming community does nothing but talk about that, dude. I can't find anything about any other games coming out. There's constantly games being released. And like after a Souls game comes out, it's basically like a year of every conversation about gaming, starting with, "You play Elden Ring?" It's just like, man, no. Get them out. Get them out. Where's that other one too? This moment was brought to you by drugs. Just a stupid fucking vapid, empty-headed, pay attention to me comment. Yeah, we're doing a purge today. It's long overdue, man. So if you type something, even if I don't read it, it's fine. But if it's not on topic and it's not a complete sentence and it doesn't have at least like an attempt at grammar, you're gone. So Spectre's on notice. Zero tolerance for the rest of the stream. If it's stupid, if it's empty-headed, if it's vapid, if it doesn't add anything to the conversation, if it's self-serving or attention-seeking, bans. And that just goes for everything too. Don't even talk about it. Just zero tolerance. It's been way too long. I don't ever really get on week one of AAA releases, but chose Elden Ring, and I'm decently satisfied. I've never played a Souls game before. Yeah, that's fine. Like, look, dude, I really don't care. Like I said, I was just kicking the, blah blah blah, kicking the fucking hornet's nest. Here you go, blah blah. It's Cynic. Shut up, Cynic. "'Tis time for the purge." I do like Elden Ring's big world. I enjoy exploring it more than the fighting, really. Whatever. See, dude, like, it really does feel like that to me sometimes. It's like every time a Souls game comes out, I feel like it really is kind of comparable to Madden, because, like, if you talk to people that buy Madden every year, they'll be like, "Oh, what's new in this one?" "Oh, like, they updated the rosters. And there's a new juke animation that's real clean." And you're just like, that's $70. It's the same thing with Souls games. It's like, I've watched some footage of Elden Ring and shit, and it looks like they added just like a bunch of big empty world and gave you a horse, so that it takes you longer to get from place to place. It's like, it's like they turned Dark Souls into a Far Cry game. Yeah, dude, every time I like look at somebody that's streaming it, they're always on their horse riding across an endless empty fucking place. It's just like, to be honest with you, one of the things I like about the gameplay loop in the Souls series, keeping in mind that most of my experience with the Souls series is in the first one, Demon's Souls, And then second, like probably Dark Souls. I played quite a bit of Sekiro too, but that's a very different kind of game, but it has the same kind of gameplay loop. Is that it's not like impossible to travel around, you know? Like the first game, Demon Souls, had a central hub, and you went to all the different levels by touching an archstone in that hub. They're all collected right there in the center, so you go to the different levels by picking that. And then when you exit out, you're back at the hub. So it was very easy to get from one area to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And then, like in the later Dark Souls, Demon Soul, or Dark Souls 2, 3 type of games, they added the ability to teleport around to make it easy to get to certain areas and get into other areas quick, so you didn't have to ride your horse across the planet. And then it looks like they've got like a fast travel system. It's just like it is, dude. It's Far Cry, but Dark Souls. And I'm just so bored with that like open world with a bunch of mini map markers on it that I have to chase down. I can't even imagine, dude. I mean, I wouldn't even pick up another type of game that was like that, let alone a Souls-like one. It's all fucking drab and annoying. I hate that type of shit too. I hate inconsequential side questing in games. I am so sick of being sent on chores by villagers, dude. It's just absolutely nonsensical to me. I ride into their blighted little village that's being tormented by some demon menace on a flaming winged Pegasus, wearing the armor of a dead god and holding a vorpal sword that like shimmers with warp power. And I walk up to an old lady and she asked me to help find her chickens that escaped. You have to be joking with me. Like, I tap out. Could you help me find my chickens, hero? I seem to have escaped from my pen, and without their eggs, I will die. I need you to deliver this. Yeah, they just treat you like a mailman. What? I'd be fine with those types of quests existing if they just give me the option to like rudely dismiss this person's petty concerns in the face of greater danger. Yeah, it's like, will you help me? And you get like, sure, I'll help you, or I don't have time right now. It's like, how is that the only way to respond to this? I'm just tired of it, man. I'm tired of the games. Like I've gotten to the point where I understand what's being done to me. You know, these open world games where I'm chasing mini map quest icons and shit. Okay, I see what you're doing. to tidy up my living space. Yeah. Will you do my laundry for me? It's like, no. Well, if you don't, you're not going to level up fast enough to keep pace with the content. And you're going to miss out on a chain quest that you don't know exists that requires you to do my laundry that will lead you to get the most powerful sword in the game. All right, give me the laundry. It was the first big open world game you played, Paul. It was EQ for me. Yeah, it was probably like, I mean, if you want to get real technical, I played MUDs back in the pre-internet days, but yeah, I mean, the first game that I really remember recognizing as like, man, the world is huge is Ultima Online. It was just a big, living, constant, persistent world. Here, let me let you inside, bud. Would you consider GTA's shark cards and game credit system and loot boxes in general is a cause for concern? Kids play these games. No. Kids play these games, but kids don't have credit cards. End of discussion for me. That's where I draw the line, dude. I am so completely and utterly wary of any attempt for people to have moral outrage because the kid. It's just like, dude, you're the parent. You're responsible for the types of things that your kid's exposed to. If you don't want your kids playing GTA, don't buy the game. Don't buy the machine that the game is played on. Don't let them play games. That's all within your power. You know, saying we got to clean this up or sanitize this for the kids or that for the kids. I don't ever buy that, dude. You know what we need to do for the kids? Normalize actual parenting. How about that? That's what the kids need. Kids don't need us tiptoeing around on eggshells so that they don't see something that might be inappropriate for them. The kids need a parent that takes interest in their life. Well, you get on that. Well, you take care of that. And then if everybody's doing that and kids are still, we can talk about it. Well, you get on the parenting. You know, it's funny. I was talking to my mom the other day, and she's changed a whole lot because now she's a grandmother, you know, and she likes to say like, "Oh my God," you know, when the kids do something, she's very like protective in a way that I'm not saying she wasn't protective of us as kids, but it's just like the culture has changed, you know. I remember she was telling a story about how one of the grandkids, like they share a fence with this neighbor that's got a big dog, and the little kids like to go over there and pet the dog through the fence, you know, and she's all like, "Oh my God, I'm always so worried that dog's gonna bite one of them or blah blah blah." And I'm just like, I'm just thinking back to my childhood, and I had to stop her, and I was like, "Mom, there's a video in your house right now of me at 5 years old with my little sister, who's 3 at the time, in my lap, driving around on a 3-wheeler, like a quad, but with 3 wheels. Those are illegal now. I was 5, and there's a video in that house that we can go find of me doing donuts in the yard at 5. What are you talking about? When did this happen? It's just, you know, I understand. It's grandmama things. was just like, Mom, you put me on a drunk horse. I was like 7. You put me on a drunk horse, bareback. It's just funny. Funny how times have changed, you know. I think she was just trying to kill me, maybe. It was the 80s, man. Everybody was doing it. But she was like, well, I'm afraid of those dogs. I was like, Mom, when I was their age, I used to run around the country alone with coyotes and rattlesnakes and other neighbors' dogs that were off the leash running around and stuff. I used to go for like hours. Oh, that's different. It's like, no, it isn't. Yeah. I had a giant iguana, yeah. A huge bull iguana. Got him when I was like, I want to say like 13. And my parents had him all the way through when I moved out and beyond. He was huge. He was a beast. Well, there were no woods near where I was. It was a lot of like prairie, but I used to just run around out there. A rattlesnake city, doo-wah diddy, dude. Coyotes and wild dogs and the occasional fucking, you know, wolf or something coming down out of the foothills or bear or whatever the fuck. Get out of this house. It's just funny how that whole thing has changed. People are a good amount more fearful when it comes to kids. Is there venom lethal rattlesnakes? Yeah, I mean, if you don't get treated for it, it can kill you. You know, you get some anti-venom or something, but dude, I don't think my parents had any anti-venom stocked up in the house. We lived out in the middle of fucking nowhere, so if I got bit by a snake, it's gonna take 25, 30 minutes for an ambulance to get there with some anti-venom or whatever. It's over. Yeah, there's just the area I grew up in was very, very prevalent with rattlesnakes. So, yeah, there were no cell phones. So I couldn't like pull out my phone and go like, I got bit, or call 911 immediately. I'd have to fucking run all the way back to my house or to a neighbor's house. You know, that'd probably be my best bet if I was far away from home, but still, what if the neighbor's at work? Oy vey. All right, well, it's hot out here, and I'm going to call it a day. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys next time, huh? Bye.